Scenarios, Cadet Scenario number 3. It is Convoy Raid. You can get the Cadet booklet at starfleetgames.com. Just go here for Starfleet Battles. And on this page, there will be links for the Cadet Training Manual, the SSDs, the counters, the map, and other play aids. Now in scenario number 3, some additional things start happening. We introduce other ships other than the Federation. We introduce the concept of shield boundaries. We start using the 16 impulse chart. The speed of drones are increased to speed 16, and they have a 3-turn endurance. And the drones themselves are destroyed at 4 points of damage, and they do 6 points of damage if they strike a ship. Firing a heavy weapon at drones from this point forward will now have a small target modifier. You add 2 to the die roll. So in the previous scenario, we were firing photons at drones, and the die roll was 1 to 5. That's what we rolled. But now with a small target modifier, if we were to do the same thing, it would no longer be a roll of 1 to 5, it would be a roll of 1 to 3. The freighters in this scenario will not have shields. They will have 5 armor. That's 360 degrees. It's the first thing to get hit. They will be speed 4. They have a phaser, but it will stop working after they take 5 damage after the armor. And at 10 points of internals, they will slow down to speed 3. At 15 points of internals, they will slow down to speed 2. That speed change occurs at the top of the next turn. This scenario will be using the Klingon Cadet Cruiser. It has phaser 2s, not phaser 1s. The die rolls for damage are a little bit less. It has 2 disruptors, FA arc. Disruptors are a 1-turn arming weapon, where photons are a 2-turn arming weapon. So they can fire every turn. The damage is 5 points at range 1, 4 points out to range 4, 3 points out to range 15, and 2 points out to range 30. The Klingon Cadet Cruiser does have a drone rack. So it has 4 drones that it can fire. 1 drone per turn. The Klingon has a slightly better turn mode. It can go to speed 8 and still have a turn mode of 1. And we will be using the energy allocation this turn. The freighter is pretty empty, just cargo, bridge, phaser 2, 360. We will be using the 16 impulse movement chart and the damage allocation chart. Now this is the scenario. The neutral planet of Iridama has refused to sell iridium to the Klingon Empire, preferring instead to sell to the Federation. So the Klingons are basically going to destroy those freighters to teach them a lesson. This will basically be using automatic rules for the freighters. They will fire at whatever gets closest to them. The freighters are going to try to leave the map on the right hand side of the screen. Now there are going to be shield boundaries in use. Standard Klingon or standard ships have 6 shields, 1 shield per hex facing. The hex has 6 sides. So here we have a Klingon facing in direction C. So the number 1 shield is facing direction C. The number 2 shield is facing direction D. On the standard blue map, as well as a lettering circle. This map is rotated, so A would be straight up. Since we're using a 16 impulse chart, we have ships that are going to be traveling at different speeds. So we will be marking on the 16 impulse movement chart for movement. But first let's do our energy allocation. Okay, so first we have to count up our warp power. So we have 16 warp. Let's try using the text mode on this. No, it's a little bit better. We have impulse engines. How many? We have 2 impulse in the back section. And how much reactor? We have 2 in the back, no one up front. So we have 20 power available total. How many batteries do we have? We have 2 batteries. The phasers are fully armed right now. It takes 1 point to arm a phaser 2. The disruptors are a 2-point weapon for standard. And cadets, we do not yet use overloads, so that's all we can do is standards. And then we have energy for movement. So we used 4 power out of 20, that leaves 16. Well, it's going to get kind of tiring moving everything at speed 16 all the time. So what we're going to do is we're going to start using what's called shield reinforcement. We have a notes line down here. So any power not allocated of the 20 to movement and weapons, or phasers, or damage control, or recharging batteries is going to be put on the notes line as shield reinforcement. But instead of just putting the power there, I'm just going to put what shield is reinforced. We're only going to allow 1 shield to be reinforced. So instead of going speed 16, let's go speed 12. That gives us 4 power. And I'm going to put it on the number 1 shield. So the total power used was 20. So the drones are moving speed 16. This Klingon ship is going to be moving speed 12. Let's try something a little bit better than that. There we go. And the freighters are going speed 4. Okay, so on impulse 1, nothing moves. Impulse 2, the Klingons move. Impulse 3, the Klingons move. Before we go any farther, let's just take a quick look here at the robotic rules for the freighters. So the freighters are going to be moving directly ahead without turning until they reach row 15, at which point they will turn heading C. They will fire their phasers. Freighter A will fire its phasers at the Klingon or at a drone targeted on itself on impulse 2 of every turn. Freighter B, impulse 4. That's a little bit predictable. So let's just let the freighters fire at whatever gets close to them, or when they see a firing opportunity. We'll make the robotic freighters a little bit smarter than what is here. Okay, so impulse 4, the freighters will move, as will the Klingons. Now the freighters are moving speed 4, slower speeds move first. And then the faster Klingon moves. Okay, so we now have a Klingon at range 3 to the freighters. If we look at the weapons chart for Phaser 2, range 3 is a guaranteed hit range for Phaser 2. And the minimum damage is 3. If we were to wait until point blank, the maximum damage is 6. Average damage is about 4. So 50% chance of doing average damage, and only 1 point less at range 3. Let's call that the automatic firing point for the freighters. So at range 3, the first freighter will fire at the Klingon. And it rolls a 1. So it does 4 points of damage to the number 2 shield on the Klingon. And of course that's not the shield we had reinforced. We could drain 2 battery to take half that damage away, but we'll leave it for now. We'll save the batteries for something else. We're no doubt going to take more damage. Next impulse, nothing moves. Next impulse, the Klingon moves. The Klingon will turn. As the Klingon turns, you will need to place a turn marker. look at the weapons on the Klingon, FA disruptors, FX phaser 2s. The rear phaser 2s are towards the rear and out to the sides. Now disruptors at range 2 are 1 to 5 for 4 damage. When we get to range 1, they're 5 damage. So let's get a little closer. Next impulse, Klingons move. Now we've just triggered the automatic firing of 2 more shuttles. This is the shield boundary. So this this freighter, is firing on the number 2 shield, and this freighter is firing on the number 1 shield. So at range 3, we'll do either 3 or 4 damage. So let's do that dice roll for the shield number 1. And we rolled a 1 for 4 damage. There's 4 reinforcement on shield number 1, so no damage to number 1. But we have that other freighter firing at range 3 at the other shield. It rolls a 3. And 3 is 4 damage on the same shield. That's what the automatic firing from the freighters would be. Well, we've also reached range 1, which is where the Klingon wants to fire. Okay, so we're going to be firing on Cadet Freighter 1, which we will designate as 1, 2, 3, 4 clockwise. Now, the Klingon has some rules for freighter damage. It wants to achieve at least 10 damage to slow the freighter down. Preferably 15. It will take 20, 25 total to destroy the freighter. So we look at our disruptors. We have 2 of them. We're going to do 10 damage from disruptors alone. And we have 2 phaser 2s. At range 1, we're likely to do another 10 damage. So let's fire 2 disruptors and 2 phaser 2s. It's going to be 4 dice. The first 2 will be disruptors. The next 2 will be the phaser 2s. So the 2 disruptors hit, and the phaser 2s do rolls of 3, and the rolls of 3 at range 1 are 4 each. So that's 18 damage to the first freighter. So that's 5 armor, 13 internals. But instead of looking at all those, let's just do this a little bit faster. So it's going to be 13 inside. Let's just kill the cargo. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. And then we had forward and aft hull. Well, there's only 2 hull. We had a phaser hit. That's 13. Instead of going through all those rolls. Just make it a little bit easier. So this ship has taken 13 internals, not 15, so it's now speed 3. Now the cadet cruiser has 1 shuttle. Shuttle travels at speed 6 and it has a 360 phaser 3. So next impulse, Klingon moves, freighters move. So the freighters on their pre-programmed course go here. And the Klingon is going to just go forward. The Klingon is going to launch a shuttle. So it's launching in the same hex as the ship. It is now launching speed 6. Now this freighter is at range 3, so it's going to fire. So the Klingon has a phaser 2 to each side. It will fire one more phaser 2 into the first freighter, and it will fire another phaser 2 into freighter number 4. So the first die roll is into the previously damaged freighter. So phaser 2, roll of a 6, at range 1 is 3 damage. So that's 3 more inside on the damaged freighter. And it was a roll of a 1. For 5 damage on freighter number 4. So let's do freighter number 4 first. It lost its armor. So that was 3 inside to the freighter. That'll be 6 dice. That'll be 8, 12, and 6. Eight is AFTAL, there is none. APR, I do not believe there are any. We've only got impulse, warp engines, and bridge. So we got a right warp engine hit. Is an Oxcon, there is none. Emergency bridge, there is none. Scanner, we're not using them. Probes, forward, right warp engines. That's 2 right warp engine. And a 6 is a hull impulse. We do have an impulse. So 2 right warp engines and an impulse. That's 16 damage. So this is now speed 2. And the Klingon has fired every one of its phasers and its 2 disruptors. It's launched shuttle. Next impulse. Next impulse, nothing moves. The Klingon is launching a drone. It'll be launching the drone at freighter number 4. Next impulse, just the Klingon and the drones. So the drone moves, hits, and does 6 damage, and the Klingon moves. Now that shuttle was launched on the 9th. It'll be able to fire on the last impulse. Freighter number 4. Just took 6 hits. So let's just take it out on cargo for 4 of them. And we'll roll 2 internals, which will be 4 dice. So 4 and a 9. Nine's a left warp engine, 4 is a phaser. Next impulse, Klingon and shuttles move. Next impulse, freighters and Klingons. Next impulse, nothing. Next impulse, shuttles and Klingons. Let's take a quick look and see what we have left on the first freighter. We have essentially 4 damage left on the first freighter. So this shuttle is going to turn when it moves. Next impulse, Klingon ship. Last impulse, everything moves. Klingon at speed 12. The turn mode of 2, I believe. Turns again. On the last impulse, everything moves. And the shuttle will fire at the damaged freighter. Whoops, that's a 3. And I need a phaser 3 charge. There we go. So I rolled, I believe it was a 3. Range 1 is 4 damage. So that's an 8, another 8, another 8, and a 7. And all we have left is a bridge, excess damage, and left warp. So the left warp will get hit, then excess damage, and then excess damage. Those are 2 left warp engines, excess damage, and then boom. So this ship blows up. Sorry, my machine I had a bit of a power outage here. My machine's shut down, so I just reloaded everything up. So the turn 1 impulse 32 had just called, and the shuttle from the Klingon had just blown up the first freighter. And I've just looked up what the explosion strength would be for the cadet game, and it doesn't have any, so we're just going to put it down as a 2-point explosion, just to do a little bit of damage to my shuttle. And we've launched 1 drone. And the shuttle takes 6 damage. It's taken 2 so far, so I'll put a -2 there. Okay, so at this point energy allocation would happen again. There's been no internals on the Klingon, so the power is still 20, but we need to recharge phasers on this turn. So let's count that up. 10, 14, 16, 18, 20. 20 power total. No reinforcement this time. And I've renumbered the freighters. So last time we did clockwise, this time we'll do counterclockwise. So the damaged shuttle is here, top left. That's 1, 2, and 3. So it's top of the turn. And this time, the Klingon is going speed 10. The shuttle is going speed 6, and the freighters are still going speed 4. Okay, so first impulse, nothing moves. However, we are within range 3 of all of the freighters. This shuttle is within range 2 of this freighter. This freighter has a shuttle at range 1, so these two freighters would trigger to fire on this shuttle. And this freighter has the shuttle and the ship at range 3, it'll fire at the ship. Now since this freighter is range 1, it'll fire first on the first impulse, and this freighter will hold fire until the second. So let's see how much damage this freighter does to the shuttle. So it's 1d6 at range 1. So that's a phaser 2 doing 3 damage. Sorry, rolling a 3 doing 4 damage. So shuttle minus 4 minus 2 is 6. The shuttle is destroyed. But this phaser 2 has fired. Freighter number 1 still has its phaser. Okay. On the same impulse, freighter number 2 is firing at the Klingon, hitting the number 5 shield. It rolls a 4 at range 3, does 3 damage. So only one phaser 2 is left, the one up here. The shuttle is now destroyed. Second impulse. Speed 4s, there's no more speed 6s. Speed 10 Klingon moves. Klingon is going to turn. To bring its disruptors to bear. Got an undamaged number 6 shield. Next impulse, nothing moves. Next impulse, the freighters move and the Klingon moves. Freighter 3, or freighter number 1, the one with the unfired phaser 2, has now reached range 3 to the Klingon. It fires, and the Klingon, since its disruptors can't fire at range 0, is going to fire just the 2 disruptors into freighter number 3. But let's first roll the freighter's phaser shot at the Klingon. Range 3. It rolls a 2. Does 4 damage. And that is striking the number 6 shield on the Klingon. Okay, so we're firing 2 disruptors at range 1, standards. These are 1 to 5s to hit. So it's a hit, and it's a hit. That's 10 damage to freighter number 3. So that's 5 armor gone. It'll be 5 internals. So 5 internals. It's going to be 10 dice. In sets of 2. That's going to be a 7, 11, 9, 9, and a 5. So the 7 is cargo. 11 is the phaser. 995. Left warp engine. Underlying systems can only get hit once and they have to go on to the next item. That'll be a forward hull, which is going to be there. And number 5, right warp engine. So now all the freighters have fired again for this turn. Klingon's going to move. It's going to go to range 0 with freighter number 3. And it's going to fire its 2 FX phaser 2s. Five and a 3 at range 0. That'll be 11 damage. Let's just kill off the 9 cargo. So that'll be 2 internals. So that'll be 4 dice. Killing off the cargo like that was just speed things up. They're going to get hit on most die rolls anyway. So we have 7 and 7. Forward hull, and any warp engine. Next impulse. Nothing moves. impulse after that. Klingon moves. It turns again. Since the freighter is there, I'm just going to put the turn marker here for now. And by turning, it has now brought the rear phaser 2s to bear. LRL, RRR, they both can fire directly behind. There's about 6 left on the cadet freighter. And they're going to move next impulse. So we will fire both phaser 2s into the freighter at range 1. A 2 and a 6. That'll be 8 damage, which will be 16 dice. However, it doesn't have that many internals on the ship, so that's going to blow the ship up. So this ship is destroyed. And we assigned it an explosion strength of 2, so the Klingon will take 2 damage to its rear shield. Okay, next impulse, everything moves. Next impulse, nothing moves. Klingon will launch a drone. That's shuttle number 1. Next impulse, Klingon, and the drones move. The drones are speed 16. The Klingon can now turn again. It will turn. Drone moves, hits, and does 6 damage. So let's roll that 6 damage. That'll be 12 pairs. That'll be 9, 9, 9 again, 10, 4, and 7. So 9 is left warp engine. Second 9 is a hull. Third 9 again is a hull. 10 is the phaser. 4 is going to be your right warp engine. Nope, sorry, there is a transporter. And then 7 is going to be hull or cargo. Okay, so the Klingons fired everything, and the freighters have fired everything. So from now to the end of the turn, the freighters will move 2. And the Klingon will move 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, turn mode is complete. One, 2. Turn mode is complete. Last movement, it turns again. And that would be the top of the turn again. So we go back to energy allocation. Still no internal damage on the Klingon. So it still has 20 power. It still hasn't drained any battery, so there's still 2. We've again drained all 4 phasers by firing them all. So to recharge them all, it's again a 4. We'll learn the disruptors again. We'll go 10 more into movement. We paid 2 in the damage control last turn, which means we repair 1 box. So we'll repair it on the number 2. And we have 2 power available. We can either put it in reinforcement or damage control. Well, it looks like the 6 will be the first shield to get hit. So we will reinforce the number 6 shield with 2 power. That, of course, totals to 20. So, Klingon coming at speed 10. Have either the freighter slowed down? Yes, this freighter is slowed to 3. This freighter is 4. So we have a freighter at 3, which is freighter number 1. And we have a freighter at 4, which is freighter number 2. And then we have the Klingon at speed 10. Okay, so for the first 4 impulses, the undamaged freighter here will move 1 forward. And this Klingon will move 2. 1, and then he'll turn. So the Klingon's got to move 2. Then he'll be at range 3 of the freighter, and the freighter will fire. So the automatic firing of the freighter happens. Rolls a 4. So at range 3, that's 3 damage to the Klingon with 2 reinforcement, which means 1 point of damage to the shield. Next impulse. Oops, we missed the movement on this freighter. So next impulse, speed 4 moves, and the Klingon moves. Or the next 2 impulses, only the Klingon moves. Next impulse, this freighter moves. And then this freighter and the Klingon itself moves. Klingon's number 1 shield hasn't really been touched, so the Klingon will turn up. And move. It's now triggered range 3 to freighter number 1, which doesn't have a phaser anymore. And the other freighter has fired already. So next impulse, Klingon moves. Its side phaser. Phaser number 4 now arcs, so we will fire that into freighter number 2. It does 3 damage, I believe. Range 1, roll of a 6, 3 damage. Next impulse, nothing moves. The Klingon will launch a drone. This is the third drone launch on the Klingon. Next impulse, the Klingon and the drones move. So the drone will hit for 6. The Klingon moves. So it's 4 inside on the freighter. So it'll be 8 sets of dice, or 4 sets of 2. That's a 4, a 9, a 9, and a 5. Four is a phaser. Left warp, forward hull. Right warp. Now that was movement. The Klingon has not fired his 2 FX phaser 2s, which he'll do now. So this is at range 1. A 6 and a 3. A 7 damage. Nine, 7, 4, 2, 7, 10, and 11. Nine is left warp engine. 7 is a hull. Sorry, 7 is a cargo. 4 is a transporter. 2 is a bridge. 7 is cargo. 10 is a left warp engine. There is none. A hull hit. 11 is a right warp engine hit. Last impulse, everything that's moving moves. And the Klingon turns. And it has the left side phaser 2. It has not fired yet. It'll fire that into freighter number 1. So a roll of a 3 at range 1 is 4 damage. That'll be 8 dice for 4 internals. Six, 11, 11, 9. Six is left warp engine. 11 is right warp engine, right warp engine. 9 is cargo. So the Klingon allocates again. Still no internal damage. It's a bit of a turkey shoot. Let's take a look and see what the speed of the freighters are. Okay, so this is reduced to speed 2. Both freighters are now speed 2. So the Klingon is going to go speed 2. It's going to maximize its damage control at 4. That leaves 6 reinforcement. Neither freighter has a phaser. So at this point, the Klingon's got power to throw away. Freighter number 1 has only got 2, 4, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 internals at most. The 2 disruptors and 1 phaser 2 will take care of that. And 11 damage on the other freighter. And the Klingon has got 3 phaser 2s that it could fire at that at point blank range. Minimum of 15. So this turn coming, and he's got a drone left. So this turn coming, the Klingon is going to completely blow up both freighters, and that would be the end of scenario number 3 from the Cadet booklet. Sorry this went a little bit long, but this is how it works. It would be a little bit faster if it was pen and paper instead of me flipping back and forth through windows. Next video would be Cadet Scenario number 4.